We're joined now by our great friend Ric Bucher, who the last time we talked had one of the most fascinating Clippers takes I've ever heard. Rick, thank you for joining us. People don't remember, you and I talked a month ago, and you said what the Clippers need to do is let Paul George be the go-to option on offense so Kawhi can become back to the claw defensively, still obviously be a huge part of the defense, not be relied on for everything. I don't know that they've done exactly that, and the defensive numbers aren't great for them, but they, to me, after being way overhyped last year, are actually under the radar, sneaky, scary this year. Your thoughts on what you've seen from the Clippers about a quarter of the way through the season?
Yeah, you're right in that they haven't gone full Paul George, but I believe that they've given him more latitude. There's been more balance between those two, and getting their comeuppance last year may just ultimately be exactly what they needed as far as Kawhi being a little more fun guy and Paul George being a little more dialed in. But the biggest difference for me is the change that they made in the ancillary pieces. I thought the Lakers had a good offseason. I thought the Clippers had an okay offseason, but not as good as the Lakers. Seeing these 19-20 games, I've really flipped my opinion on that. The Clippers, in the changes that they made with Luke Kennard for a Landry Shamet and a Serge Ibaka for Montrezl Harrell in particular, Nick Batum coming into the equation, they now have maybe not quite as overall talented as the guys that they had, but the talent fits better around Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and they are steadier hands. And if you look at the efficiency of Kennard and Batum in particular, they are shooting career highs in certain areas, percentage-wise, and to me, that is the sign that they're taking advantage and creating the space for Kawhi and Paul George to operate. So I like this Clippers team. I know everybody is gun-shy about getting back onto that Clippers ship because we saw it sink last year. I'm almost ready to jump back on and say, certainly this is a better team than the Clippers last year, and they may actually have a viable chance of knocking off the Lakers.
Well, I'm excited for you to get back on that ship because the world's more interesting when you and I are diametrically opposed on things. And thus far this year, we agree on a lot of stuff. Let's stay out west, though. I started the show with this. LeBron's first 7 years in Cleveland, it's obviously LeBron just do everything. And then by his fourth year in Miami, it's D-Wade. D-Wade's got to be load managed. We got to monitor his knee. LeBron, go ahead and play. And then by his fourth year in Cleveland, Kyrie's gone, and the wear and tear of 3 straight finals trips have gotten to some of his teammates. My guy Ty Lue, who maybe this year will get his respect with the Clippers, it gets to him. LeBron, play all 82 and carry us. Right. And now year 3 with the Lakers. It's like, all right, Anthony Davis, we got to, if he's a little dinged, let's give him the night off. Meanwhile, LeBron is 4th in the NBA in minutes. He's 4th in minutes. The only 3 guys ahead of him are 20, 26, and 26. All young guys. What do you make of year 18? It's LeBron, play every game. And if you're bad like you were in the second half yesterday, we'll lose. But just go ahead and carry. What do you make of how the Lakers' reliance on LeBron, even at this point in his career?
Yeah, Frank Vogel in some ways seems to be channeling his inner Tom Thibodeau at this point. And I don't quite understand it. Unless it's something that LeBron wants to do, unless he's looking at this as, I need to work my way to that peak fitness. And by the way, your guy did it again. I'm not tired. I'm not ever tired. I'm full of energy. Yeah. You don't need to say things like that. There are a multitude of other things you could say other than get defensive about the fact that you're not playing hard through whatever minutes that you are playing. No one would give you a problem for acknowledging, hey, I've been doing this for 18 years. I think I know what I'm doing. Or I just came off of a championship. Relax. Instead, it's the defensive, what are you talking about? I never get tired. Look, I've been 26, I've been 36, and I've been 46. It's okay. At 36, you're allowed to get tired. Don't pretend that you don't get tired at your age. But to answer your question.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
The problem is that LeBron is not, and the Lakers in general, are not nearly as effective when he's not on the ball. This is the real catch-22 with LeBron. There's nobody else that I'd rather have the ball in his hands to make the team operate. But it's the LeBron system more than anything else. Handing those reins over to somebody else is a real sea change for any team. And so the team can't function in the same way when you take the ball out of his hands. And to be honest, this is one of the things that is different from him and Steph, is that Steph can still be very dynamic and effective when he's off the ball. LeBron James is not anything close to that off the ball. He runs over and he stands in a corner and he says, okay, you guys take care of it. And I wish he were a little more dynamic and a little more involved when he's not the primary ball handler.
Yeah, you said you've been 26, 36, and 46. I am currently 36, and let me tell you, this is my second show today. 36-year-olds just don't get tired. Let me have a sip of the coffee. I feel great. Feel great all the time. There's no fatigue. And listen, the second half last night was bad for the Lakers. It was their worst loss of the year. It was bad for LeBron. The game before in Philly, and this to me is more about Philly than the Lakers. Yeah. I actually thought the Lakers should feel great leaving that game. We played like dogs. If you're the Lakers, you're saying we played like dogs for 45 minutes. And then for 3 minutes, got every stop we needed, made every shot, got to almost every loose ball, had a beautiful play to take the lead late, and then Tobias Harris made a shot. Good for you guys. You get the win. Philly, who's my finals pick out east, they got a win over the Lakers, and if I were them, I would have left it feeling terrible. Guys, this is what playoff games are going to come down to. How are we going to execute in the final few minutes? And even though Tobias is bounced back year under Doc, some people thought he would, if that's your go-to guy, you're probably in a bit of trouble. Embiid might be the league MVP, Rick, right now, but I'm a little queasy about my finals pick Philly as far as late game stuff. Where are you at with them?
Yeah, I'm with you in terms of I'm not convinced yet. I need to see that Tobias Harris can be a championship caliber closer. And I agree with you that the the Sixers should have been a little mollified by the fact that they let the Lakers back in as easily as they did. The execution was not good. But I did find it interesting that Anthony Davis said, I think we're very capable of beating the Sixers in a 7-game series. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, what? You're very capable. You're the defending champions. Like, if anybody should be confident about what you can do when the lights really turn up, it should be you. And yet, what I get, the sense that I get, is that the Lakers are beginning to realize that the size advantage that they had last year was a very big element in their success. And I thought adding Montrezl Harrell was going to be a great addition. I thought it was going to be an upgrade from what Dwight Howard did, in spite of the fact that Dwight Howard had just fantastic numbers last year. Yeah. But that hasn't been the case. And these bigger teams have been beating them up. And so, amazingly enough, I am sensing a crisis of confidence with the Lakers. And maybe the Sixers, if they're believing in fool's gold, that's one thing. But I am really struck by the fact that the Lakers, look, okay, so you lost to Philly, and now you lost to Detroit, and now we got to start talking about, hey, we got to right the ship. For all that they've done, for all that they are, for all that they have, I find it quietly alarming that they are alarmed by these last 2 games.
Well, I love it. The Lakers getting right back and LeBron getting right back to where they were last year. Nobody believes in them. Portland's going to beat them. Houston's going to beat them. The Clippers and everything. They're going to beat them. Underdog Lakers. That's the place that they need to be. It's a great way to win their second title. A little chip on your shoulder as opposed to the overwhelming favorites. All right, speaking of a team that I think has been anointed, I want to talk about the Nets. Yeah. They are going to try to do something, Rick, that's never been done in modern NBA history, which is win a title while being not mediocre on defense, horrible on defense. Yeah. And I don't see a way for them to get better on that end. I don't see the player, the piece. They got nothing left to trade. I read this week they'd like to trade for Kevin Love. First of all, that solves nothing. Second of all, what are you giving up? The naming rights to Barclays? Like, everything's gone. I don't think the Nets have the ability, forget winning 4 series. I don't think they can win 3 series with this roster. Am I being too down on them?
They do have the injury exception granted for Spencer Dinwiddie. So I know that what their hope is that somebody's going to be bought out, or there's going to be a free agent that comes on the market that they can pick up and put into that slot. That is what they are hoping to do. They know that they have to amplify their size and their overall defensive ability. But it's an old standard theory when it comes to winning championships, which is you can get by with one mediocre defender. You can't get by with 2. And I actually was impressed by the way that KD and James Harden played defense down the stretch against Miami. Those guys, I was like, wow, like when they want to, they can, but they don't consistently. And you have to build that tenacity at the defensive end like a muscle over the course of the season. You're absolutely right. People are going to be blown away by what they do during the regular season because offensively, they're going to overwhelm teams. And they're just impossible to prepare for on a night in and night out basis. But once we get to the postseason, when you have the best teams and you can game plan, now they're going to have to go through stretches where those guys miss shots. We've already seen it in the regular season, what happens to them when they're not clicking offensively. The game gets away from them. As good as I expect them to be, as dynamic as I expect them to be during the regular season, I don't see this working in the postseason. Because they're not developing. Look, there's a reason we've never seen it before, because it ultimately doesn't work.
All right, we got about 60 seconds here. I'm going to throw a curveball at you. Fake trade. Listen, everyone wants to save Bradley Beal. The Wizards have lost 10 straight games that he has scored 40 points. They're the worst team in the NBA. In the West, I think the Nuggets were expected to go up a level. And they've stayed in neutral or gone back a bit despite Jokic being an MVP-level player this year. Do you think that – and I didn't know if Harden would fit there because you'd have to change everything. I think Beal fits just about anywhere. Michael Porter Jr., picks, whatever else you need. If the Wizards were interested, what do you think that would do to the Nuggets? Murray goes down to your 3rd option instead of your 2nd option, and Beal slides into number 2.
Boy, it would make them I'd put them right there with the Clippers as a team capable of beating the Lakers. I still feel they have an opportunity to do that. What I see with the Nuggets and the reason that they've struggled to this point and why they seem to be so different from the bubble is that in the bubble, it was really the Jamal Murray show. And if you know his history, he's played with quality bigs, but he's always been the driving force. He's been the decision maker. Well, that's been flipped over to Jokic. They are playing through him almost exclusively now. And as a result, Murray has struggled. Now, the question is, if you brought in a Bradley Beal, would he be any more effective having to play? Look, I know all the numbers with the Wizards, but it's really the Bradley Beal show. In Denver, it's going to be the Jokic show at this stage. And who can you get that is going to be able to play within that structure? I still would probably lean toward Jamal Murray figuring it out than Bradley Beal coming in, and now you got to figure out Bradley Beal and Jamal Murray. Whether it's the Miami Heat or it's the Denver Nuggets, I'm not going to get too worked up about where they are right now. I believe they'll work their way back to being the teams that we saw last year.
Rick, always a ton of fun. Appreciate you. You're always on when I'm on for Colin. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Stay safe, stay healthy out west. I appreciate you, man.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.